yethu sizobe ibhekene nomkhakha wezemfundo. Sivakashela uStacey Brewer oseGoli onebhizinisi lezikole eziyimele.
It was very hard to start a school, as you can imagine. We need to attract teachers and children without any track record.
Siphinde sivakashele eRustenburg ukuyovakashela abaphathi beRepurpose Schoolbag, umkhuba oqanjwe kabusha osizana nabantwana besikole abafunda ngaphandle kwagesi.
We created the Repurpose Schoolbag, which is made from upcycled plastic and it is solar powered.
Labo somabhizinisi bazovakashela istudio sethu ukuze phela bakwazi ukuxoxisana ngamabhizinisi abo kanye nokusebenzisana nabantu abasha baseNingizimu Afrika. Wezemfundo unakekela iningi labantu abasha baseNingizimu Afrika ekuyibo abakha amaphesenti awu-66 wenani labantu. Ukufinyelela kwemfundo eyisisekelo kusezingeni eliphezulu kulelizwe lasekhaya.
It's fundamental for everything. Like if you want to be successful, you have to go to school and work hard to get what you want.
And the government could do more in building more government facilities so that then we don't have to, we can actually go to school because we want to go to school.
Isibalo sentsha ebhaliselwe ukufunda sicishe sigcwale bekubalwa abafana kanye namantombazane angaphakathi kweminyaka ewu7 kuyela ku15. Imigomo yahulumeni efana ne-no-fee schools phecelezi izikole zamahala kanye ne-nutrition program isinikele kakhulu kwizinga labafundi ababhaliselwe ukufunda.
So making it a business, it's in a way kind of unfair for those people who don't have money to pay the fees.
Kule minyaka edlule ibanga lezikole eziyimele selinyuke laze lafika ku50%. Kulenganiselwa ukuthi ngonyaka ka2013 izikole eziyimele zazingaphezulu ka2500. Kuphinde kube namathuba amaningi okukhuthaza osomabhizinisi abafisa ukungena kuwona lo mkhakha.
South Africa has a high rate of school enrollment with 97% of 11.4 million school-going age children. This industry is filled with education initiative, all finding innovative solutions to meet the country's education challenges. Namhlanje siniphathele amabhizinisi amabili wona azakheleke indumezulu kuwona lo mkhakha. Owokuqala igama lakhe uStacey ophuma e-Advanced Spark Schools.
Hello, I'm Stacey Brewer and I'm the co-founder of Spark Schools. Spark is a network of low-fee private primary schools serving the communities of South Africa. We are currently operating 4 schools in the Johannesburg region with plans to open across South Africa. And the idea is that at Spark we can serve every child with any need in order for them to achieve international expectations.
Making moves.
What do you have to do?
It's very, very fun.
I'm with my friend Sally Evans. We've been friends for over 10 years, and my husband Matthew. I was born in Johannesburg, and I grew up here. I went to primary school and high school, and then I went to university in Grahamstown.
And I am a varsity friend of Stacey's, and we've obviously remained friends since then.
Earliest memories of Stacey was when she came to visit a friend of mine at Rhodes University, and she was studying at Stellenbosch at the time. We met there, had a great time together.
I went to Rhodes University and I studied a BSc in human kinetics and ergonomics, so it focuses on the human movement in the sports and the working world.
So I like to think that she came to Rhodes because of me.
Absolutely loved Rhodes. That's where I made some of my best friends, I made some of my best memories, and I'm out of Rhodes for about 10 years now, and still my closest friends are all from varsity days.
One weekend we had a huge party, and I think we sold hot dogs or boerewors rolls or something, but Stacey and Ryan Harrison were set up at a table, and we were actually selling tickets for people to come in to our party and making money, but they were getting something in return, so it wasn't like you know, it was legit, but it was kind of a bit weird, but it definitely reflected her very entrepreneurial spirit.
I still think a lot of people don't even realize what we're doing or have done. We got a lot of comments, Ryan and I, first of all, about starting a business. They were like, oh, shame, can't you guys get a proper job?
A lot of people have told her that she can't do what she's doing.
People laughed at us. I did a business pitch at Gibbs, and the panelists laughed at what we wanted to do.
And each person that tells her that, it just adds fuel to the fire, and she becomes more and more determined to change the way education's done in South Africa.
When she actually asked me to help her with a press release, just how do you know, put together something, so she, you know, start advertising Spark and E-Advance, I was like, wow, okay.
Stacey is just an incredible person.
Determined and dynamic.
Heart is massive. She loves her friends and her family so much.
If someone asked me who I am and I had to describe myself, I would say very ambitious. As it comes from childhood, I don't take no for an answer, and I'll drive in order to reach my dreams.
Ngihlangana naye ke lana ke Fenteli yena okwenye ke inkundla ehlukile uzivulele ke isikolo sakhe asikhulumi ngesikole esisodwa ke la noma ezimbili zine ke izikolo zakhe zonke uma seyihlangene ngizothi ungena la ngaphathi ngixoxisane naye ngizwe ukuthi ke kungani wathi decide ukuthi yena ayivulele isikolo igama lakhe uStacey igama lesikolo iSparks ake ngene ngaphakathi.
Please have a seat. I'll get someone to call her for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs.
Hi, Miss P. Can you please get Stacey for Siya? Thank you. Hi, Siya.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Sis.
I'm Portia. They call me Miss P at Spark.
Okay.
Let's go through to Stacey.
Alrighty, after you.
Hello, Siya. Nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
Welcome to Spark Ferndale.
Thank you.
This is Dee Woodley. She leads our blended learning specialist, and she's also a parent of Spark Bramley, Spark Scholar.
Yeah.
And then behind you, Siya, is Bailey Thompson, who is our head of our school design team, and is also the principal of Spark Ferndale.
Oh, wow.
And on the right, we've got Portia.
Oh, so that's where she sits.
This is where Portia sits.
Yeah.
Most of the time, she's around the school making sure that everything's running smoothly.
Yeah. I would have thought maybe you would have gone into a different industry, but you went and started Sparks. Why did you start Spark School?
Spark was all started in order to address the education problems in this country.
Yes.
A lot of people talk about government solving the problem or somebody else solving the problem, but what's important as South African citizens is that we all get together and solve the problem. And that's really why Spark was born and why I got involved in it.
We can serve any community, and they can achieve international results and be internationally competitive.
Wow.
Go, 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 go.
We don't just focus on the academics of Spark, it's very important the actual character development and holistic child. And so as you'll see, they are doing physical education, which we do every single day.
Yeah, 2013, this first school was launched.
First school was launched in 2013.
Which school is that? Because I know that you got a couple of
Yes, so Spark Ferndale was the first school launched.
Spark Ferndale was the first one?
Which is the school that you are at today.
Alrighty, and then in total, how many Spark schools do you have?
We've got 4 schools at the moment. We've got our second school with Spark Cresta. We opened Spark Maboneng and Spark Bramley this year, and we're in the process of opening another 4 schools going into 2016.
Wow. Do you really love what you do here?
You've got to be absolutely passionate about what you do. And what I'm really passionate about is creating that change in South Africa and starting to fundamentally disrupt how education is run.
My first and foremost responsibility is to be the instructional leader of the school. So I am responsible for ensuring that there's excellent teaching happening in all of our classrooms and that our students are held to very high standards and also have joyful and engaged learning environment in which to grow.
They have literally reduced my parenting in about 20%. Everything that they teach at school is what I will teach at home. I don't have to do that anymore. So dustbin without being told.
So in 2012, I was looking for a school for my son and thought, let me look at the ISASA website and look at all the schools that are in the area that I live in. I happened to find Spark on that website, and it wasn't in the area that I live in, but I really liked their mission of low-cost education at a high quality, which is not what I was finding anywhere in the area that I was living in. Further than that, they were looking for teachers, and I thought, well, I'm a teacher, so let me apply. So we both started our journey together in 2013, myself as a teacher and Rishan as a pupil.
So what you can currently see is that they're doing a maths program that we've brought out from the US in order to meet international expectations, but each child is at a different stage of the program, and that is evident by the screens that you can see. In 2013, we started with 160 children, and now we're serving over 1,100. But that's split up across the 4 campuses. Well, let's go have a look at some of the classrooms. So what you can see the teacher's just done, she's recognised positive behaviour and she's acknowledged the child, and so she's moved up our behaviour chart.
Oh.
She's made the right choice.
So what's Spark's model?
Constantly, whenever we make decisions, we say, are we making it in the best interest of the children?
Oh.
So you'll often hear us always saying, for the children, for the children.
For the children, for the children. Please keep up the good work.
Yeah,
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You've got to hire 150 people in the next year. Where are you going to get them?
In the past few years, there has been significant expansion of independent schooling in South Africa. I-research ikhombisa ukuthi ke izikole eziningi ke la kulomkhakha zikhule ngo-50% kule minyaka lena ke edlulile. Kuthiwa ngonyaka ka-2013 izikole bezibalelwa ku-2,500 ebezizimele ke zikuwona ke lomkhakha lona ke ozokufundisa. Njengamanje uStacey uselana ke nathi e-studio ukusitshela ukuthi ke ingabe yena ke esakhe isikolo iSpark School sifundisa kanjani ke abantu ke futhi ke sibanikeze ke imfundiso eseqophelweni eliphezulu ngamanani aphansi.
Feeling a bit apprehensive. I'm not sure what to expect. I've never met Pepsi, but I've heard a lot of great things about him, so I'm sure he's going to put me on the spot and challenge me.
Hello, Stacey.
Hello, Pepsi.
How are you? Welcome to Making Moves.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Take a seat.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get the nuts and bolts out the way. Spark Schools.
Yes.
What makes you guys different from all the other kind of private schools that operate in the middle income space?
So the whole core of what Spark is about is our actual education model, and it's a blended learning model. So at a very high end, it's the use of technology that's integrated into the schooling system. And what blended learning does is it drives 2 things. First of all, cost efficiencies, and second of all, quality. In terms of quality, we gather data on the children in order to inform instruction. So we know down to micro objectives how children are achieving. So if a child's really excelling in a certain area, they get advanced. If they're struggling, we know where they're really struggling, what are the points, and then we make sure that they master basic skills. In terms of cost efficiencies, we are able to provide education on what government's total cost to educate, and that is groundbreaking in South Africa. And so our school fees for this year are 15,000 Rand.
Okay, and that's roughly what it costs the government to educate a child?
Yeah, per child per annum, yes.
Okay, is this some sort of altruistic social entrepreneurship thing, or are you a capitalist and you want to make money?
I'm a social entrepreneur, if you want to call it that. It's about social impact. So it's not necessarily about making money. I mean, it's really about creating an environment, a system that's sustainable. So we are a for-profit organization, but the idea is that the money that is made is reinvested for us to open more schools and to serve more children.
Jeez, so I would never invest in your business unless it was just to do good.
No, we've already had investors that have exited and they've made a very decent return.
Okay.
But it really is, it's twofold. So it's about actual quality, which is about changing people's lives, but also they do make money.
Okay. So the people that exited, what, you bought the shares back? Or,
no, so...
Or there were other parties that came in and invested?
Exactly. So we had a big investor, a VC firm from London, invested into Spark, and so certain shareholders exited because now they're buying a decent amount of the company.
Okay. Are you guys profitable?
Our schools are breaking even after 3 years of operation. And so Ferndale, for example, is now in their 3rd year of operation and it's now profitable.
Okay, so what's the growth target? Where do you guys want to
We want to serve over 60,000 children over a 10-year period.
What does that mean? Just
so it's about
down.
60 to 64 schools.
What's your race breakdown?
We're probably looking at 80% black people and then 20% Indian white. But in terms of economic background, I mean, it's everyone, which is, I think, very interesting. We initially didn't aim to serve all economic backgrounds, but we've got children that have been sponsored from orphanages to executives of banks or certain health companies that are sending their children to Spark. And I think what that is showing is that they're seeing the quality, they're seeing the value. And that diversity that the children are being exposed to daily is so powerful.
The top 3 operational challenges, you have to overcome in this business currently.
The big thing is scale. So fundamentally, because we are growing significantly, we're opening another 4 schools by the end of the year. We're growing to the Western Cape, so that's a whole different beast, if you want to say it. So the big thing is people. We're recruiting over 150 people for this year.
Are you not growing too quickly?
No, I don't believe you. I think you're only growing too quickly when you're compromising on quality.
You've got to get critical mass broadly, but you've also got to get critical mass per school. Because,
sure, exactly.
In a school below a certain number of students doesn't make any sense, right? So what's the bigger priority and why the rush to open more schools when you haven't necessarily achieved critical mass in each school? So the reason why Ferndale's profitable is because you've got critical mass there.
The way we open schools is very strategic because Spark, when you come to it, it's very different. There's a very strong culture. Then in terms of why are we going number of schools, Spark is here to push change in education.
Where are you finding these staff members? You've got to hire 150 people in the next year. Where are you going to get them?
And so we are starting to form partnerships with the universities as well. And so we want to recruit the graduates into Spark. We've tried to work with teachers that are a lot more traditional or more experienced and often come in highly recommended and unfortunate. They're just, they're not successful.
To set in.
Yeah, with
so,
Spark.
I mean, you've got an abundance of unemployed graduates in this country.
I think Spark is serving a great niche there because if you look at other traditional schools, private government, it doesn't matter. A lot of them say, no, we don't want the graduates, we want experience. So a lot of the teachers that are dying to get into education are leaving the industry because they cannot get jobs. So we are starting to enter into this region of really making sure that the talent remains in education and they don't leave and go to corporate and then they never go back.
Okay. And I'm going to hand you over to someone else and you guys are going to have a chat and then we'll catch up afterwards and find out how that went.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stacey's now going to join Gareth Jason for a coaching session and then we're going to chat a little bit later to find out if any insights came out of that.
It was a great interview with Pepsi. I was actually very impressed how insightful he was and how he really knew about the market and knew a lot about Spark. And I think he offered a lot of perspective and a lot for us to think about and reflect. And the challenge is, are you growing too quickly? And it has been a question that I've been asking myself for a very long time. And I do believe it. When you compromise on quality, you are growing too quickly.
So no year na go tlhola ke ba tshwenya.
Uphenyo lukhombisa ukuthi ke izingane zesikole zidinga lokho okulandelayo ukuze zithole imfundo ekahle. Zidinga ugesi, zidinga amanzi ahlanzekile, nezindlu ezangasese ezihlanzekile. Uyabona? Uphenyo ke likhombisa ukuthi ke siyanda isibalo zezindlu ke la ngaphandle noma amakhaya angenawo ugesi. Sikhuluma futhi ke lana ke ngamakhaya nezindawo lezi ke ezile emaphandleni. Ilana ke khona ke renewable energies isingenileke ukuthi ikwazi ukusiza inkinga ezikhona ke kulomkhakha lo. Sike sathi ukuvakashela ke osisi abaphuma lapha Repurpose Schoolbag ukuzwa ukuthi ke bona iziphi indlela abaqhamuka ngazo ukusiza zona ke lezi inkinga ezikhona nalezi ebhekene nangabafundi.
I'm Bonngoe.
And I'm Thato, and we're the co-founders of Repurpose.
And we created the Repurpose Schoolbag, which is made from upcycled plastic and it is solar powered.
We give these school bags to kids in rural areas so that while they walk to school, it charges, and when they get back home, the school bag turns into a lamp to study.
Let's go a place called Bonngoe. I always say Google Maps calls it a township, but I think it's home.
Thato is brilliant from the start.
Growing up was really fun. I mean, every time I the bake, the teeny, things like that.
I grade 1 I enter beauty contest. Then nalip montle, eno put a winner. Then everybody ba mopala as a great position. I 4. Then she cried. I end up getting teacher to move something just to pep her up. Then get a box of crayons. Crayon.
She liked to create things and do things, the objects in Arata art. She took it to high school from primary school, where it's a major art.
She has always been a driven person. She has always been a go-getter.
I grew up in a home where Mama was a nurse, and then Papa is a taxi owner and taxi driver. I think that was the perfect upbringing for Nat to be a social entrepreneur, because I think, you know, the balance of my mother being a nurse, caring for people, and then Papa bringing the very kind of money. When I'm a social entrepreneur, I need to care for people, but also it must make business sense.
So I was born in Bonngoe, raised in Rustenburg, and we're living in Hartbees now. So we can go upstairs, meet my sister, and she can share a bit of my life story with you. Hokola in Rustenburg, nearly a community that baling friendly, and it was a very small community. So it was a comfortable situation because no corner to anybody and at the end of the day, you know.
Reabetswe unali stout.
Not that much.
I remember the one time, I think unana like 7 or 8, and so this one evening, like you know, so we don't know what's going on. So my grand inside the bedding, like the whole tub all over Mpeto, you know. And Mutate night missed the whole day. We don't even know what time she did it, but who else could it be, you know?
I think one of my big activities is in our community. So no squatter can be behind in and and from there it showed me as an individual, you know. Being raised by my grandmother definitely instilled a lot of values in me and my sister, and I think our entire family actually. She was a very generous woman. She was a very hard woman as well, very strong.
I think Laratala business is from Mama Rona. Mama Rona is an entrepreneur.
Well, we met in grade 4. We went to primary school together, and we weren't the best of friends when we met.
Then grade 7, I left in Kaya High School, then ena tla go join go high school.
She's definitely creative. She's intuitive. That's her a very strong character of hers.
Reabetswe ke motho e leng gore o wa nagana before a bua, which I think nayang irritated because ke bua thata. Ha itse dilo fela wa nagana, she's strategic, so
namhlanje nginibingelela nonke lapha emakhaya ngise Rustenburg butebutuzana ke nalapha eNorth West endaweni abayazi ukuthi bathi kusehlabani. Uyabona ke ngizohlangana nosomabhizinisi bethu amabili amakhosazana ke lawo asemancane kakhulu kodwa baze nesuku elizokwazi ukusiza izingane zesikole ke ezilapha emaphandleni. Ake ngene ngixoxisane nabo ngizwe ukuthi ke iliphi ke lesu abeze nalo basebenzela khona ke la kuleli bhilidi. Uzongene ngaphakathi sixoxisane.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, where's your business partner?
There's my business partner.
Okay, so we go through to her.
Let's go.
Hello.
How you doing?
Okay.
Well, everything. Ladies, I heard about the awesome work the Schoolbag at Alona. How do you guys put them together? How do you make them? And what makes them unique? Please take me through to everything.
Okay.
Well, let's step outside.
Oh, okay, cool. Lead the way.
Di plastic tse di tlhaga go di tlhaga go matlakaleng tse dingwe di tlhaga go dikolong tse dingwe di tlhaga mo malapeng ne di lo latlhiwa.
Why did you guys decide to tonka matlakala?
Yes.
And use them for let's say the school bags?
It came from a call, you know, where she had created a bag out of the bag, the plastic it's a Woolworths, you know. From there, I started a company. She was like, there's some value in this to create something bigger, you know.
And then from this part, this what I.
That's now where the magic starts to begin inside the factory. Okay. The virgin color, plastic.
How did you guys know this is what we'll need to do? Move this, do this, to get the bags out.
It was a lot of prototyping and reeling. I mean, firstly, remove the branding at all.
Yes.
And I the newspaper, you know.
Yeah.
So through a lot of trial and error, relate different things. That's how we're feeling from relate the saper, relate all sorts of everything.
Yes.
Up until this moment.
Yeah.
And ne tšhono e leng gore ne re ka kgona go dira mesebetsi gona no re kgonne go hira batho ba e leng gore otherwise ne ba se ile kgona go kry-a mosebetsi, and it's an easy entry into a job market where e leng gore ra train ourselves and re kgone go hira mang le mang.
Yeah.
Ke statile mo re thaka ke bereka go tlhatswa di-plastic ko ntle. Ne ke sa itse go roka ene ne ke se shontla tsama ke itse go roka. Ba ba ntsaya ba mpa mo motšhini for half day. After half the year, I started to eat roka. I began to like a mosebetsi. Na go ne ke sa bereke ne ke tsunya thata batho ba go ka madi a rente a dijo ngwana sekolo. So no year na go tlhola ke ba tsunya.
O thotse jwang mosebetsi o banyana ba o kreile kae?
Nna le nna ke a roka. Go lapeng ke roka diaparo tse le tsa Setswana. Ke nna ke tomileng pele le bona ka drafta beke. How easy was
it for Lona to funding this type of business and how was it funded as well?
I think funding from our side wasn't as difficult as Batubai Bang, because first thing entering the competition, the SAB Foundation,
yes,
we replaced the number 3, and that's how we created our first grant for the school bag. So I think for Rona it wasn't a challenge, but it was just getting out there.
Yeah.
Thato and her business partner Rhea are some of those entrepreneurs who really have a passion for what they do. Since I joined Standard Bank last year, one of the things we've done is brought Thato into the organization to showcase what she does with Repurpose Schoolbags. Since then, she has spoken at quite a few of our events, taking us through the model of the Repurpose Schoolbag, her business model, as well as the jobs she creates through this amazing initiative.
I'm going to body get in a school of Golaya, Gilligate 3. Giggle beggar this year, happy a giggle more and a giggle most tato. How much like a shooting like a Verakisa, Gavakisa, half it to take it to a galon more long like a quality val.
To serve another school a lot, especially when I have electricity go on because at night ba khona gore ba etse di homework ka that solar e no gore e charge ke letsatsi.
How do your clients or the the corporates ba le thola kae to make sure right again? I love what you guys do. Ke batla school bag se re batla tse 100,000 ho fana ka tsona. Ba le thola kae?
The website is www.repurposeschoolbags.com.
Email address.
And then we're also on Facebook actually as Repurpose Schoolbags, and then we're also on Twitter at official Rataga. We're also on Instagram at official Rataga, and then our emails will speak about.
Hey, use the platform for social media.
Yeah.
All right. Again, makosaza kalwa holo for na kalona go studio again.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
The director says apparently you've got boyfriends.
Wow, okay.
South Africa averages more than 2,500 hours of sunshine per year, making solar energy most readily accessible source of light. Uyabona i-Repurpose Schoolbags bona bapha ingane zesikole ithuba lokuthi ke babe namalambu okufunda uma ngabe ke ilanga selishonile. Sikhuluma lana ngokuthi uReabetswe and Thato basa studio nathi ukusitshela ukuthi ke leli qhinga labo leyikhwama lizokwazi ukuthi lisize kanjani abantu nafuthi lithuthuke ligcwale izwe lonke leli lethu.
Definitely, I fear the questions.
Pepsi's a bit controversial. We've seen the other shows, so it should be interesting.
Ladies, welcome to Making Moves. Firstly, I mean, I'm absolutely impressed with you guys. I love the work that you're doing. I think it's incredible. And I've seen you celebrated in all sorts of places. This is not that conversation. I'm just going to, ask the hard questions. And my first one is, is this a business or is it an NGO? What is it that we're doing here?
It's a business.
You don't have to go to a corporate for me to pay for the product, because NGOs go to corporates and they get money in order to provide products and services to consumers who otherwise can't afford to access those products or services, which is exactly what you guys do.
Look, I think where we are different from an NGO is that there's value on both ends. So when it comes to a corporate, paying an NGO to go give, for instance, food or soccer balls, for instance, when it comes to value, they would probably be doing that for their CSR budget. So to tick up a box to say, we've done this, that's part of kind of our yearly financial spend, and that's that.
But how does that benefit the corporate?
So when you look at a business like ours, it's an entry level for corporates to come into a conversation and into a way of impacting the communities that would otherwise not have contact with them. So also looking at benefit and value from that perspective, not necessarily from a financial perspective.
Okay, we're going to agree to disagree. Okay. I struggled with it a little bit when I was reviewing what you guys do, because you've created a product, it lights up with you because you don't have lights. And it has reflectors because, you have to leave Kohaika 4 in order to get to school. I get it?
Yes.
So all those things indicate that you've created a product for people that can't necessarily afford to buy the product.
we've had a couple of conversations actually with two big chains who actually sell, you know, back to school products. So the plans are definitely there, and obviously that comes down to the fact that we do need to grow our operations. So we've started considering, you know, where else can we actually take our factory and set up shop somewhere else. So there's definitely, you know, plans for us in that regard.
Now we're becoming a business. Okay, so
yes.
How much is it going to cost to get the product into the end consumer's hands? Have you explored ways to make it cheaper so that it can become commercially viable?
The first thing that we want to cut down on is definitely the solar element that we are currently using, and find another alternative which is cheaper but still serves the same purpose, you know, and still lights up a room for a child. And the second alternative, or the second option that we're looking at, is definitely cutting down the ends in our own production that cause the amount of hours that we're now spending on one bag or one plastic, and making it more lean in terms of production, and then that would help us with the reduction of our costs.
What's the manufacturing cost per bag?
Currently, we sell the bags for 250, and that includes the bag and the solar panel.
So what are some of the challenges that you guys have with running a business?
You can go.
Okay. Yeah, definitely production. I think revenues, you know, being able to maintain expenses below whatever that you are currently now receiving, you know. And I mean, every day there's an expense, and being able to ration that and being able to produce enough for you to sell with the amount of capacity that we currently have right now is definitely a struggle that we are facing.
Okay, okay. So when you graduate, then both of you, is the intention to continue growing this business? There are no other interests elsewhere, anything else that you want to try outside of this business?
I think as entrepreneurs, both Thato and I, the focus right now is definitely to see this grow beyond what we ever anticipated. But also, I mean, we have our own interests, you know, tap into things that can grow us as well as individuals and as entrepreneurs, and expand on that, yeah.
Explain.
For instance, I have a love for hotels, you know, and I would love to realize that dream one day.
And your own future plans, stuff that you want to do?
I mean, look, where our business is, it's at a startup phase. So I think definitely we still need to be as hands-on as possible. But in looking to the future, I think what we would envision for this company is for it, at the end of the day, to be an empire, you know, an empire that is socially conscious. So we're obviously not going to get there overnight. So it's definitely going to require a lot of, you know, hard work.
You've been building a business, so no time for boyfriends, parties, and all those other things that really don't add long-term value. The director says apparently you've got boyfriends.
Wow, okay.
She just sold you out on national television. Okay, guys, I'm going to send you off for a mentoring session where you're going to bounce around some ideas with someone that is a mentor and has got experience kind of engaging and coaching people. And then we're going to chat a little bit afterwards and see if anything's shifted.
Thank you.
Ne? Thato and Reabetswe will now go for a coaching session where they hopefully will not be discussing boyfriends, and we'll catch up with them later for some feedback.
The interview with Pepsi was definitely a grilling session.
Having someone come on board and kind of listen to what you do from a different perspective always helps.
But it made us realize one thing in terms of our own business. I mean, the fact that we're satisfying NGO purposes as well as being a for-profit, you know.
Kubaluleke kakhulu ukuthina osomabhizinisi abasafufusa ukuthi sibe nomdlelwane nabo abaqeqeshi bamabhizinisi. Uyabona lana sikhuluma ngokuthi ke thina kosomabhizinisi laba safufusa uma ngabe ke sinawo ke amaphupho lawe sifuna ukwafeza ukuthi ibhizinisi lethu lindlondlobali, kuhle ukuthi sibe nomdlelwane ke nabo ke laba ke abaqeqeshi. Ake sibone ukuthi coaching session ihambe kanjani.
Big challenge that Spark is facing in order to successfully meet the growth is obviously externally, the marketing, both for staff and for parents. And then the second part of it is how do we ensure quality as we scale, that nothing is compromised.
I never heard of Spark before.
No, I'm sure. Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of people.
So the question now comes into it is to say, well, how are you going to make sure that Spark becomes a household name? And the question I would have for you is, how do you make sure that your target market knows who you are? It's important that you can sit down and say, I'm going to take the time and effort to train people up appropriately. And unfortunately, that comes with a bit of cost. Rather have somebody say, you know what, I've identified, here is a potential spot for your school, I want you here, because my kids need to go to your school.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that comes into, from a parent perspective, making sure that you're networking well with these parents on a social media kind of a platform, and then to drive that from a social media perspective. So I think it's a good methodology that you've got, and I think it's an exciting, exceptional methodology. Now it's just to say, right, how are we going to make sure that there are more kids who's exposed to that methodology?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
So, did Gareth take Stacey to school?
No, I don't
or did
think
she
so.
school you?
I think it was a bit of that.
No, she knows her story.
Yeah.
Stacey, what did you get out of it?
I think it was a very good time to just sit and reflect, and Gareth asked really pressing questions, as well as you, to really think about scaling. You know, when are you scaling too fast? Marketing, how can you use your existing staff body as well as parent body and the big advocates of Spark? How do you really leverage them to spread the word about Spark? Because word of mouth is so powerful, and especially in education, it's very valuable.
When I arrived at the school, it was all about everybody participating and making sure that I felt welcome. And I think all of that spoke to a very happy environment. And you know what, when you have a happy kid that is learning and is interacting, you've got a winning success model. So I think from that perspective, they've done all of that right.
Okay. You know, Gareth, from your perspective, what needs to happen in order to take this business to the next level?
So I think there are two things which we've discussed. The one is, how do you get this brand known in the marketplace? How do you replicate the success that you're currently having in your existing schools across more and more and more schools? So we spoke about the creation of, what did we say, Spark Academy, okay, to make sure that the teachers that you're getting in become immersed in the Spark methodology and the Spark way of doing things, so that when you send them out into a different school, that there's no loss of identity, there's no loss of brand, there's no loss of how you do these things, so that you can really replicate that. So those are the two big things that need to happen.
And you've done so much. What have you got to say to your peers?
Yes, I mean, we need more women entrepreneurs. I think fundamentally, we were at an awards event last night and I was the only woman entrepreneur, and it was quite shocking. I would just say, just do it. I mean, you can plan to the nth degree, you can say all these different scenarios, but the most valuable lessons you will ever learn is when you're actually doing your business. And that first step is probably the hardest and the most courageous step, when you finally decide, okay, I'm going to do this full time. But just take that plunge, because it is a roller coaster ride, I mean, as you know, but it's so worth it. And think bigger picture, know your why, know your purpose, and follow it.
Okay, so Stacey, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Gareth, as always, thank you for sharing your expertise and your insight. It was a pleasure having both of you here. In a little while, we're going to catch up with another entrepreneur that's going to inspire us, and we're going to find out how their coaching session went and whether they got any insights that are going to help them improve their business.
How do you manage to keep this intact, being friends as well as being business partners? We've seen business going down, not because the product is not good, not because the business idea is terrible, but solely because of lack of maturity or management on differing. It's very important to get an expert advice in terms of what kind of contract you enter into. I would imagine you would like to grow the business, but how do you wish to do that, and where do you wish to see your business?
We're potentially looking at, places like, Johannesburg, Gauteng, and see if we can set something up. You wish to expand geographically? Yes, yes.
Oh, I see. The insurance, do you have insurance for the product? Because I would imagine when you store them, if the fire burns all the way down,
Yeah.
Is it protected?
We're looking into the kind of options that can cover us and the kind of work that we're doing.
You need to protect that, even for transportation. For one to thrive in business, it's about the service more than the product. Service, deliver. So if you've got storage, you may consider that. In terms of quantity, how much, it's always to look back to say, what is the pattern? Even if someone comes and say, I want 100 bags, at least we've got 40. We say 40 we can deliver now, then in X duration, 2 weeks or a week, we'll deliver the rest.
So, Pralefa has spent some time engaging with Thato and Reabetswe about their business. So, ladies, what was the one thing that kind of came out, or an insight that you got out of that discussion?
We touched on our production quite a bit, and the one thing that we were establishing is, are we a retailer or are we a wholesaler?
The business model says they manufacture, the organization come and buy and donate. So it is not their place to talk about donation. They manufacture, they sell, full stop. Then it's up to the organization who donates to talk about donation.
One of my biggest challenges is the cost of the bag relative to the market that the bag is made for. Is it possible to make them cheap enough that you can sell them directly to the consumer?
I think it's doable. The most important thing is for them to go back to poke numbers around the 200 Rand, because they're selling the bag for 250 Rand. But retailers is likely to pick up on about 100, 150 Rand. Is it practical at this stage? Not with the current setup.
What are you guys thinking about the growth of the business? So is the idea drop the manufacturing cost and distribute wholesale to retailers, or is what you're doing now working? So if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it.
It is working, but up to a certain extent, and I think there's always room for us to grow.
Yeah, for me, Pepsi, I think it's not so much about them stopping activity. They can remove it from pitching. It must be very clear and simple. The core business, they manufacture, they sell.
You guys have done phenomenally well, and I'm sure we'll be hearing and seeing more of these two young ladies in the future. So thank you for sharing your story and making moves.
Thank you for having us.
Cool. Education is absolutely essential for every developing economy. Today we learned that the entrepreneurs that succeed in this industry are those who find innovative solutions to the challenges that we have as a developing economy. Till we meet again next week, goodbye and God bless.
My biggest takeaway from the whole experience was that chat with Pepsi, and when he asked a question about, are you scaling too quickly? Why are you scaling so quickly? That type of thing. It's a very important question. And I think it's an important question for any high-growth company.
I think what we're going to do differently is perceive our business differently, because I think before this, we kind of saw our business as doing everything.
And I think experience of making moves literally put that in a nutshell, and it covered everything. It's a in a day.